Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
From the beautiful city of Abuja, you are warmly welcome to today's edition of Money Radio on Leadership TV. And today, being Thursday, we are discussing the topic. Well, it's the segment actually. The segment is energy focus. Yes, and the topic is, can Nigeria adopt Saudi Arabia's Aramco model? With the increase in oil prices, and it seems like this increase is going to be sustained for a long time, considering the fact that the West is actually sanctioning Russia and it's going to be long term. So this increase is actually likely to be sustained for a long time. Yeah. With this increase, Nigeria stands to gain nothing from the increased price of oil, considering the fact that much of it is much of the profit actually goes to subsidizing fuel. To make matters worse, the country is actually having to borrow to subsidize fuel, the consumption of fuel. And so the topic we are discussing today actually makes so much sense. It's appropriate. Yes. Can Nigeria adopt Saudi Arabia's Aramco model? To start with, Nse, before we go ahead, sorry, Nse Anthony Uko is in the studio with me. Nse, you're welcome.
Thank
She's
you.
our in-house analyst, and I'm sure if you have been following this show, you know Nse very well, and that means you are in good company when we talk about Nse Anthony Uko on energy matters. And I'm your host, Case Hammond. So to start with, Nse, what is Saudi Aramco's model that you think we can follow, that Nigeria can follow to enjoy this oil windfall, which may actually be the last windfall?
Yes, as it is, as it stands now, Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil corporation, Aramco,
Yeah,
is the largest company globally right now,
yeah,
beating Apple's and Tesla, all other um, technology companies that have
yes.
found their way to the top and somehow managed to remain there for a very long time.
That means Saudi Aramco is worth more than $1 trillion.
It's $2.24 trillion.
That is huge.
That is huge.
Okay.
And of course, at a point, this company was fully owned by government.
Yeah,
And then at a point when government needed, the Saudi Arabian government needed money, and rather than going to borrow from the World Bank, the IMF, and all the other agencies,
yes.
it decided to look inward. We have this asset. Let's even value it. Let's place a value on it.
Okay.
And that was when they got Aramco and all its assets and everything valued. And at that point, they realized that it was valued over $1 trillion.
Yes.
And that was and then in 2019, it was listed on the Saudi Arabian Stock Exchange.
Okay.
And when the government needed money, it decided, okay, we would sell off 5%
Of Saudi
of
Aramco.
Saudi Aramco to
The
raise
government
funds.
stake in Saudi
The,
Aramco.
the government stake in
Okay.
Saudi Aramco. And it actually did that. And even right now, as we speak, it's considering raising um, between 50 to 100 billion dollars, and is also going through that process, selling more of its stake
Yeah.
in Aramco, and then raising fresh funds from the market, which is a more is a better way, rather than getting the country tied down to this heavy debt burden that is
Yes.
already going to approaching the pre 2005 um, situation before
Yes,
which Nigeria got that debt
that debt
relief.
relief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. You have made some salient points, and one of those points is actually valuing. Have we ever been able to value NNPC?
Ah, well, I'm not aware of that.
Now, there are so many things when we talk about the Saudi Aramco's model. Yeah.
Yes.
Number one, we don't. If you don't know, I don't know
Yeah.
the value of NNPC.
NNPC.
There has been so much talk about that corporation being a black hole. Take, for example, over the past 43 years, or say up to 45 years, but 43 years, there has been no there has been no accountability,
Yeah.
so to speak. Let's be blunt about it,
Yes.
on the part of NNPC, because we didn't know their profit, we didn't know anything about.
Anything
Yes. So
until just two 2 years
2 years
ago.
ago, is it
Yeah.
up to two
Last no,
years?
last
Last year.
year, yeah, the results for 2018 up
Yes.
to 2020
Yes.
have been published.
And that
So
was the first time the
yes,
NNPC actually declared profit.
that was in
That
2020.
was in 2020. Yeah.
So
So,
mm,
you know, it brings out something, because when we talk about the Saudi Aramco model,
mm,
before selling stick
yes,
in, before government sold
it's
some of its stake to the
yes,
public, it had to be valued.
yes,
That poses a challenge, because if we talk about selling government stake in
mm,
Saudi Aramco, sorry,
in
in
NNPC.
NNPC, it will mean valuing NNPC. To value NNPC will call for some accountability, and
Yes,
some accountability will mean putting some light in the black hole, that
yes,
because many Nigerians perceive that NNPC is a black hole. NNPC has actually been gulping money before now. Gulping money, when I talk about
mm,
gulping money, I'm talking about, for example, some of its assets,
mm-hmm,
including the four refineries,
mm-hmm,
gulping amounts that they can't really account for, because if you sink money into an asset for revival, and over the years we see that
yes,
it produces nothing,
nothing.
yes, that means that is actually a black hole. Yes, you
Not
agree with
only,
me?
yeah, and not only are they sinking money into the refineries for turnaround,
Yes,
uh, which never gets turned around,
yes,
and then on a yearly basis, monies are being budgetary allocations are being made to it for salaries, for running operational costs
yes.
of those refineries. There are staff that work there 247, that work there year round, and they are being paid. All these are being captured in the government's
In the
expenditure
expenditure,
profile, and so we and with that it goes on, yet nothing of
nothing of
value is
value is
being
coming.
produced from them.
Yeah, and an internal stakeholder once said on a radio station that is based in Lagos. That is Classic FM. I remember one Barrow. I remember that name. At least the surname I remember. One Barrow. He said, and I want to paraphrase him, that workers in the refineries actually wish, they pray for the times when there is turnaround maintenance or the refineries are shut down,
Mm,
because they earn more money. When the refineries are shut down and they are still working,
mm,
that is extra cash for them.
mm.
Extra provision is being made, you know, for being on duty when you're not supposed to be on duty.
Okay.
Yes. So with such a situation, how sure are we that these people, these very internal workers, are not even sabotaging the operations of the refineries so that they will earn more money during the shutdown? That is just uh, a postulation. I'm not
Yeah.
making a statement.
Oh,
But
yes. Okay.
let's come back to this issue of valuing the NNPC. If we are to adopt the Saudi Aramco model, Do you think there will be any obstacle to valuing NNPC? At least to know how much this corporation is worth, so that if the government wants to sell maybe 5, 10, 15, 20% stake, they will at least, because that will call for actually public, it will call for accountability.
Of course. As it is, I would say that Nigeria is already on that path. For one, the NNPC, it's on its way to being a private company.
Yeah.
Come July 19th, it will be declared officially as a private company.
Okay.
So, and the management has have said that in the next 2 years, that's by 2024,
Mm-hmm.
they're looking forward to listing um, the NNPC on the
On the Nigerian
Nigerian
Stock
Stock
Exchange.
Exchange.
That's great.
Though stakeholders have said it can be earlier, they can work on having that, achieving that earlier than 2024,
Yeah.
because by doing that, by getting NNPC listed, it means that you'll be opening the company up for a wider range of Nigerians to stake, to buy a stake in it.
Yes.
And if they are able to formulate a model whereby some part of that stake is is allowed for the host communities
Yes.
to buy,
Yes.
then the communities will have stake in the companies, and the issue of having the pipeline vandalization,
Could be
vandalism, and
reduced.
then having all this busting of the pipelines for crude and all that will be reduced, because it becomes
It,
a commonwealth.
yeah,
It
Commonwealth. Yeah.
becomes what is jointly owned by all.
Yeah.
And if you're to NNPC is to thrive and yield and pay dividends,
Yes.
returns on those investments that they made buying stakes in it, then they have to jointly, everyone will be on hand to jointly protect its assets, and that will go a long way in dealing with the issues of vandalism and crude oil theft that we've been having. So based on that, analysts believe it is the listing of NNPC on the stock market is something that should be fast tracked. It shouldn't be left until 2 years from now. But of course, that is the timeline that the management has given.
Okay.
But the process of getting it listed will mean that ultimately it has to be valued.
It has to be valued.
Yes, and a lot of light will be shed
Mhm.
into that black
That
hole,
black hole.
as you call it.
And that will obviously add so much value to the stock exchange.
Yes, of course. By a layman's, by just some postulation, an analyst said, if we want to go by the current quantum of crude
Yes.
that is being produced, let's say 1.5 or 1.4 million barrels
Yeah.
of crude per day,
Mhm.
and then you value that as it is, NNPC would be worth more than um 50 billion dollars.
Wow.
Yes, and then by the time you add every other assets, and then the gas and all the condensate and every other thing,
Mhm.
and then imagine bringing that value onto the stock exchange, onto the
Yes.
stock market. It will go a long way in deepening the
Mm,
capital market.
yes. And just to put things into perspective, you mentioned if NNPC is valued, that means it may be valued by at least 50 billion. To put things into perspective, Nigeria's debt, external debt, is it external or
Both.
internal and
Yes.
external? It's something
The
around 30, between 38 and 40 billion.
yes.
Yes, and if you have that much, just like we are talking about the Aramco
Aramco
model,
model.
yeah, it can actually go a long way in solving some of the problems and at
Yes.
least forestall the issue of
Of
borrowing.
borrowing more.
That should be a fine model. There's so much to this is a wide topic and it's a rich one.
Yes.
There's so much
Yes.
to discuss. Let's take a short break. Once we come back, we'll discuss more. Please stay tuned, listeners.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back, viewers. You're still on to Money Radio on Leadership TV, and today we are discussing the issue of adopting Saudi Aramco model or Saudi Arabia's Aramco model.
Yes.
Yes, to take care of some of our issues, such as borrowing and how the country can benefit from this oil windfall, which may be probably the last windfall before renewable energy actually takes pre- so much dominance that we
Yes.
won't be able to
Yes.
benefit. So, still in the studio is Mr. Anthony Oko, and we are actually doing justice, or she is doing justice to this topic. And I'm your host, Case Hammer. So we're talking about the Saudi Aramco model, and the first half of this show, we talked about how the government can actually make the windfall count.
Mm.
What other ways do you think adopting the Saudi Aramco model can benefit the federal government and the masses?
Yeah. Like we have said, we've talked about how it will help the government to reduce this huge borrowing
Yes.
that it's been doing to fund its operations. And another issue too that has been contributing to Nigeria not benefiting from this oil windfall has been the issue of Nigeria's oil petrol subsidy.
Yes.
And in the current year, we are seeing the federal government planning to pay as much as 4 trillion naira on subsidy. And that is a huge, and this
Yes,
is
let's, 4 trillion is
and this is money it does not even have.
4 trillion is a little more than $8 billion just on subsidy.
Yes, and an analyst gave a postulation which I feel it's worth considering.
Okay.
He said, um, we have there are licenses for modular refineries,
All right.
and we have a number of them already, who a number of operators in that in that space,
Mm-hmm.
and a modular refinery with 20,000 barrels per day capacity
Yeah.
will cost between 32 and 40 billion
Between 32 and
and
40
40
billion.
billion naira to put on board,
Mhm.
to set up. And then at 20,000 barrels per day, 50 of those of such modular refineries
Yeah.
will account for 1 million barrels per day, which is much more than
Mm.
enough for Nigeria's consumption.
Okay.
And it will take 2 trillion naira to put those 50 modular refineries, to set them up. That is half of what Nigeria is planning to borrow to pay for
Paid for
subsidy.
subsidy. This is voodoo economics. It doesn't make
It
any.
does not make sense. And this monies for the modular refineries would most likely be borrowed, as in it will be lent to the people. It's not as
Yes.
it's monies that will be paid
It will
back,
will be paid back.
not money that will be sunk into a consumption hole,
A
that
black
a
hole.
black consumption hole
Mhm.
that does not wouldn't come out, wouldn't repay itself.
You know, when you think about all of this, you tend to wonder what is really the problem. Because look at it, there are so many other benefits besides building such capacity that
Yes.
would eventually save the country of its hard currency.
Yeah.
Because once Nigeria is able to save a hard currency that is being expended on the importation of fuel,
Yes.
this issue of the wide gap between the dollar and the local
And
currency will be
will
reduced.
be
It will be
reduced.
collapsed. And it will have an impact on inflation.
Yes.
In fact, inflation will grossly reduce. And not just that inflation will reduce, because much of the inflation that we're talking about is caused by this
Yes.
wide gap between the or the wide exchange rate gap.
Yeah.
Yes, because much of our products are imported,
Mhm.
including mostly this
Yes.
fuel, refined
Yes.
fuel. But besides that, think about the job creation that all of this will bring. If you have 50 modular refineries, 50 modular refineries, imagine how many persons will be employed, and they
Employed.
will be employed. You know, this will have ripple effect, because
Yes.
besides the direct employment that will
Mhm.
be realized from
Mm.
these 50 refineries, there will be uh, indirect benefits
Of
or
course.
employment.
Employment.
And
Yeah.
when all of this is done, many people will be employed. And we will talk about being employed in the oil sector. We're not talking about being employed to have just a wage, but
Mm.
what the United Nations calls living
Living
wage.
wage.
A wage that you will be able to, go to the market and say, my
Meet your basic
make your basic
necessities
necessities.
and
And
still have something left.
yes, and not think that somebody stole your money while you were in the
While you
market.
were in the market, or you lost it.
Because many people feel that way when
Of
they enter
course,
the
when they
market
come back, they're like,
nowadays.
are you sure I did not lose money somewhere?
Yes, we suspect people. That is ghost thieves nowadays. So there are many ghost thieves because of the
In the inflation.
inflation. Things are actually hard. So when we have this kind of wise investment in the oil sector, it
Yes.
will actually go a long way. And you know
Yes.
that,
And you know what? Nigeria's the current scarcity of foreign exchange that we've been experiencing
yes,
will be drastically
will be
reduced,
reduced.
because the crude oil proceeds
Yes,
will actually have value. It will not be expended again on
yes,
importation
yes,
of crude.
yes.
Thereby, is like we collected from one hand and sent it out
Exactly.
the other way.
Yes,
And then Nigeria will be able to save right now the excess crude account is
Exactly.
virtually
Is
depleted.
deep, is it, yes, it's depleted.
What is there is about 34 million, not billion, 34 million
That's so sad.
dollars, and it means Nigeria technically has no buffer
Yes,
in,
against the rainy
yes,
days.
for the rainy day.
Yeah, that is so sad. Um, I only hope that, pardon me, this person who you said this, he must be an expert. Who is this person?
Of course, he's an expert. He's an international um, development economist,
Okay,
Professor Ken Ife.
Professor Ken Ife.
Yeah.
Maybe if policymakers are listening to this program, they need to get in touch with such a person. People who have foresight, people who have the mind of real economics,
Yes.
people who can make a difference. We're talking about professionals. We're talking
Mm.
about technocrats
Yeah.
who can actually see a way out of this quagmire
Yeah.
and make some input that will bring a change, reverse this downhill
This
spiral.
trend. Yeah.
Yes, and let's hope that the policymakers are listening and will be able to get such people on board in the new political dispensation
Mm.
we are expecting. You can expect that with the elections coming on right now, people are interested in what or who wins power. But
Mhm.
after winning power or after ascending to power,
Mm.
what can you do to make the lives of Nigerians better?
Better.
And that is what you need to. They need to get people like that technocrat you just quoted on board, or at least for some consultation. That would be a wise thing instead of going back to this. I still maintain that it's voodoo economics. The thing doesn't make sense. You have assets and you are just frittering those assets away.
You don't even know the value of the
You don't even
assets.
know the value of the assets. That is, just before we go, that is what somebody referred to as Nigeria's dead assets. And they said Nigeria's dead assets are worth up to $900 billion. Nigeria's dead assets worth up to $900 billion. All of these things we are talking about, like those refineries that are moribund and
Mm.
just sucking money.
Money.
Yes, those refineries are like that snake that swallowed Naira.
We're still looking for the snake.
Still looking for that snake. So these refineries are actually like that snake that you just consume money. They are producing nothing, you know. So let's just hope that there will be change, and then let's hope that whoever ascends to power in
Positive change.
positive change. Thank you for that correction. We need positive change, and we want to have a change that will bring life back to this economy. It's really going bad. Any last word for our listeners?
Well, we've seen what can come up. Like we have a typical example. It's a life example. A country who has, though they are still rich, Saudi Arabia is still very rich.
Very rich.
Outside of, because its production and everything is still continuing.
Yes.
It's not kind of debt trap like
No.
Nigeria is, but it was able to work out something, um, this kind of model that is paying off hugely.
Yes.
Nigeria should just be, it shouldn't, um, it wouldn't take rocket science
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
to be able to replicate this and replicate it well for the interest and benefit of all Nigerians. This issue of you know being so, doing things in such a selfish manner
Yeah.
that it doesn't take the generality of Nigerians into account should be done away with
Yes.
in the next dispensation.
Exactly. Funny enough, and say it may surprise you, but don't be so surprised that this Saudi Aramco model or Saudi Arabia's Aramco model that we're talking about may have been as a result of consulting with some Nigerians. And this person you talked about, Professor Ken
Ife.
Ife, of course, he's a Nigerian, isn't he?
Of course.
Yes. So, the knowledge is there. It's just to put that knowledge, to sublimate that knowledge and put it into action. Just one last thing before we go. You mentioned just the other day that with the war going on between Russia and Ukraine, the West, of course, they intend to do away completely with the oil and gas that comes from Russia. And you mentioned, I think I remember very well that you mentioned on this show that there was a delegation from the EU that visited Nigeria's oil ministry, as well as Nigeria's NNPC. And of course, that is there is no gainsaying that it is with the view of investing in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. So the investors are there.
And
so
yesterday we just we also had the Federal Executive Council approving the ECOWAS Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline.
Okay.
And this will also be extended
to Europe. Very good. With
all these are plans that are on ground, if they will be.
So that means the market is really ready. It's a ready market.
It's a ready
Just
market.
carry out this model. And things will change.
Yes.
So much to say. I hope we won't be able. We won't one of these days develop high blood pressure on this show as a result of looking at things that can happen but are not happening. That's the way we want to draw the curtain on today's edition of Money Radio. This has been an energy-focused segment of the program. It's been nice having you, sir.
Thank you.
And
it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you also to our producer. But our main thanks actually go to you who follow us loyally on this program. Yes, to those of you who are our listeners and our viewers. I want to say thank you very much. Tomorrow we'll come up with a fresh edition of Money Radio that will be this transportation segment of the program. Until then, I've been your host, Keith Hammond, and I would like to wish you a beautiful rest of the day. Stay blessed.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.